my friend and I would, watch movies, right? And try out the moves on each other. I can remember even building like a pair of wooden nunchucks that we would hurt ourselves with. So no, I always loved it as a kid.
Welcome to the Ripple Effect Martial Arts Podcast.
Okay, everybody, welcome to episode 12 of the Ripple Effect Martial Arts Podcast. And today I'm really excited to have a karate dad. That's not just a meme like dad jokes or something, but it's a real thing. And it's a perspective that you gain in training with your kids or participating in your kids' training along the course to black belt. So very happy to have Mr. AJ Tufano with us. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Did you have any experience in martial arts before you came to Ripple Effect?
Limited. I actually did for about a year in my early 20s, a fairly similar Taekwondo. It was something that a coworker who was, I think, a second degree black belt just decided to start kind of teaching. We had a gym where I worked at the time. And so I, did that for about a year. So I had a bit of an idea about things, but, in my early 20s and establishing a career, I had a lot of different priorities too. So it was a different experience, but yeah, that was really it.
And did you have any kind of fascination? What brought you to that first experience with martial arts?
Well, yeah, I mean, personally, I've always enjoyed karate movies. And I can remember actually as a kid growing up in rural New York, my friend and I would, watch movies, right? And try out the moves on each other. I can remember even building like a pair of wooden nunchucks that we would hurt ourselves with. So no, I always loved it as a kid. But actually what got us through the door at Ripple Effect was, there was a promotion, I think at my kid's elementary school, like spin the wheel and you could, get some lessons. And so my daughter Caitlin was excited about it, right? It was interesting. I had seen Ripple Effect and heard about it before, and I'd actually considered signing the kids up, but that was really what I, provided the opportunity.
The experience of first walking through the door, can you describe what that was like?
Right. Yeah, it was actually pretty funny. I remember because, you as soon as we walked through the door and I think those first few steps, there was a class in session. I think it was an upper belt class, but it was loud, right? I mean, it was, your standard loud kicks, punches, yelling, and the intensity was high, right? And I watched both my kids on either side of me actually kind of take a step back and kind of, flinch a little. And I remember thinking at the time, well, I don't know if this is the right fit for these guys or not, And so I thought, well, let's see how they respond. And it was great, actually. We went and had a chat with Mr. Robinson at the time. And he's obviously great with kids. And, immediately you watch them kind of be put at ease, and laughing and getting excited about the prospect of it. And it just, followed on from there when they were on the mat. They had a great time. And it was, we knew that was instantly going to be fun for the kids.
Are Jacob and Caitlin, so you just described how they responded to that intensity and that volume in the school. Generally speaking, are they more reserved or?
Yeah. I think both kids, I would say, are fairly reserved. So it's not it wasn't their natural inclination, or getting out and kicking and punching things. I mean, otherwise than the normal brother-sister stuff occasionally, but yeah.
What did you feel like your role was in that encouragement, in that initial stage of them doing karate?
Yeah, when it started, I guess I didn't probably know what to expect. I probably didn't fully understand, what Ripple Effect offered in terms of not just the Taekwondo curriculum, right, and the self-defense, but also, all the leadership aspects and the community, actually. To be honest, actually, it was probably the community that as I watched, even that first few weeks and getting to know the instructors, that I really liked. And I really thought, from an environment that you want your kids to be sort of immersed in is what really cemented it for me. And, kind of giving them this opportunity to maybe come out of their shell a little bit, test their leadership skills. And then it almost for a little bit became like, it was almost like the Taekwondo for a bit was secondary, right? And so that was what I really liked about it. And that was ultimately, I think they were about maybe 2 belts in, about 4 months in or so, when, Mr. Robinson kept saying, hey, you should consider getting out on the mat, come and join us. And finally I was like, okay, let's do it. Myself and actually my wife, we both joined in. So we did it as a family. Yeah, that's been really neat because I don't know of very many opportunities where you can do something like that all together,
The way that you put it in your email was, I'm not just shouting from the sidelines, but I'm participating. And the word that you used was it authenticity, or that you have credibility in doing these things with your kids versus shouting at them to do it. What's a initial experience? So they started before you, then you got on the mat. Obviously, you're a lower rank than your kid.
Right.
Were they
Right.
excited to have you in class?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They're really excited and also excited to, teach us. Right. I mean, that's kind of a neat place where, you are kind of behind your kids and they need to help bring you up to speed. Right. And we had to kind of accelerate a bit to eventually catch them. And so that was a lot of fun. And you could tell they really latched onto that idea. Kind of back to the email discussion, the kids have done other sports or other things in the past. And, you felt like, well, you could tell them after the game, well, hey, I saw you doing this. Maybe you should consider doing this. And it's, you get the head nods. And I can remember this is the same thing as a kid, but, I'm not out there doing it with them. And it's not, it's not as applicable. But when you're doing this all together, and I think also when they can see that maybe you're struggling with something, right? And they can appreciate that if they're having a hard time learning a new form or a technique, and they can see that maybe I am too, I think that helps them, feel a little bit better about it and that we, can kind of work on these things together.
Do you feel that encouragement from them? What's something that Jacob or Caitlin has taught you or helped you improve?
Oh, yeah. Well, we all keep each other accountable. Like that's probably the big thing, right? If, there's definitely been times where, I get really busy with work or something and I'm struggling to keep up and, we all got to get to class together. We all are in the same place and we need to be helping each other. And so at different times, I think we've all kept each other accountable. There's a desire for me to keep up with them and show the kids that I can do this. I can put in the work and I can, continue to be an example, right, for them. And that, you take that serious, right? You don't want to ever give them an impression that, oh, I'm too tired to do this today. And so, because they might follow suit, and so there's definitely that part of it.
I had a funny experience. It wasn't super funny at the time. I was so nervous, but when I was testing for my black belt in that final black belt test, my daughter had earned her black belt the year before, so I started way later than her. And in the middle of the night, in that last black belt test, the black belts had gone off to have a meeting. They convened, right? Mm-hmm. And then when they came back, after we'd been doing push-ups and squats and things like that for an hour, they came back and my daughter had this huge smile on her face and this mischievous kind of look in her eye. And I was going, what's going on? And she goes, I can't say anything. And later what I found out was she was a participant in that convention amongst all the upper ranking black belts and everything on who would earn their black belt. So it was kind of this point of honor for her to be able to provide her perspective on whether I'd earned it. Luckily I got it. But,
absolutely.
A great story about Caitlin preparing a nunchuck form for a tournament. And in terms of confidence and accountability, can you just tell that story?
Yeah, definitely. This was a tournament, maybe last fall, I think. But she, for her forms presentation, she was adamant she wanted to do nunchuck one, basically. I think we learned that during red belt. So, and at the time, I think we were brown belts. And so it was maybe a little rusty. And, I'm always with the kids. I try to balance that. Okay, hey, you really need to be practicing for that, but also let them figure it out, right? I don't want them to, if they're, not going to put in the work, I'd kind of like let them figure out what the repercussion of that is. So it's that gentle nudge, but not too much, right? And so it had been kind of it was about a week before. And I said, hey, show me how things are coming. And so she walked me through an nunchuck one, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, she's not quite ready here. This is a bit rusty. And so as a parent, you want your kids to succeed, and you start offering alternatives. I said, hey, you're really good at, I can't remember, I named off a couple more recent forms. And have you considered maybe just doing that for the tournament instead? And I could tell she was set on doing this. And so I said, listen, I think, you got to get in some more time. I think you need to be practicing every day. And it needs to be smoother, and let me know if you need help. And that was kind of it. I actually don't really think I worked with her again throughout the week leading up to it. And so the day of the tournament arrives, and she, and actually this is one I had to watch from a distance. And she gets up, bows, walks up, rattles off the presentation, takes the pause, I remember, to prepare herself, and then goes in and just flawlessly goes through the form, right? There was no mistakes. And, with nunchucks, it's really easy to just miss a catch or just, not even the concern of forgetting something. It's more of just the mechanics, right? And just nailed it, like every aspect. And she looked confident, right? And so she went on to win first in her group, and that was it. So, and that's the thing I've realized about both my kids, but they can really rise to the occasion. You might not see in practice, but when they get out on the mat, it's been this way in testing, especially as well. If I've had any nerves about how they're going to do, then they get out there and they just do well. And so it's and I think it's a matter of their confidence. It's built over time, but that's been a neat thing to see.
Does their independence surprise you? Like, are they able to draw upon resources that aren't you?
Yeah. My daughter particularly has become very independent, and she'll just go start cooking dinner or working on, she'll just be baking a cake by herself, those types of things. It's just kind of funny to watch, like, what she's able to do. But one of the things I thought was neat recently, Jacob, hasn't been all that involved in sports in the past, or hasn't really found a sport that he enjoyed other than really Taekwondo up to this point. But he came home from school this winter and said, I went to the track and field meeting and I want to go out for track and field this year. And it was like, we didn't even raise it. He found out about it, went to the meeting and said, I want to do this. And I thought, wow, that's great. We didn't have to lead him into this. He just said, this looks interesting. And then he was all about it. He picked out which events he wanted to do and really enjoyed it. It did well, I think. And so that was definitely a case of the independence, the confidence, all that stuff, I think, spilling over into something else.
What kind of track and field sports is he into?
So I have to laugh. It's funny because I'm 5'9" and my kids aren't going to get any height from me. So Jacob's definitely on the shorter end right now, but he decided he wanted to do hurdles, and that was probably another one I thought, really, hurdles, okay. But went out and watched him at one of his first meets, and he could jump. I mean, really, it was so especially in middle school, the disparity in heights, especially across 6th to 8th grade, is pretty big. But he's out there keeping up with kids that are, a foot taller and really just clearing those things. He did the 100 and 200 hurdles and long jump, a few other events he's bounced between. But the hurdles was actually really surprising how well he was able to do.
The thing I think about when I think about those activities are goals, right? Beating the goal in hurdles, number of hurdles, speed, and in long jump, the length of your jump, obviously. Is goal setting something that's always been important to you, or is it something that they've picked up at all through martial arts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like early on, as watching sort of what Ripple Effect was all about and some of the lessons that it seemed like my kids would be able to pick up from this, it occurred to me that, when I was their age, I probably never understood the benefit of really putting in the hard work for something, setting a goal, but then also putting in the time and effort that requires to attain that goal. I played sports growing up, but good enough to kind of play on the team, but never really excel. And I don't remember myself really putting in a lot of time, other than the required practices. And likewise, it was probably at a later age, maybe even I think into college and getting, in engineering school, where all of a sudden things got hard. And, you have that realization of, wow, I've really got to knuckle down and put in the time. And I think that's probably for myself when I first learned that lesson, and you start to see the reward of the hard work you put in, and being able to kind of learn that lesson when you're younger, I think it just sets you up for success in so many areas. And so, if there's anything I want my kids to take away from, it's that value of putting in the work, not being afraid of taking on something that's difficult, and you see the rewards of that. And because you're going to be faced with challenges throughout your life, and it's a matter of how you choose to take that on.
One of the things I think about a lot, was part of my experience and my kids' experience in martial arts, was for some people, it's difficult to imagine taking a hit. For other people, it's more difficult to imagine dealing a blow.
Yes.
Do you fall on either side of that equation?
Oh, no, I'm definitely in the latter. I'm not as worried about getting hit as I am just, hurting somebody else, for sure. yeah, that's probably one of my biggest challenges in sparring is that.
So two amateur psychologists trying to think about why is that dealing a blow, like there's some sort of idea of offense, right?
Right.
Or something. But in this Taekwondo martial arts context, there isn't. That's in essence on the mat, what you're there to learn how to do. And have you come some way in being more assertive through this process?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that just comes with time and practice. And, the mentality, right? If you're dealing a blow, it comes, I think before you get into martial arts training, it's self-defense, or you're intending to hurt somebody to get out of a situation, right? Whereas in sparring, that's, not what it's about at all. It really is sort of you're with a partner, and you're both working together to each other's advantage, right? You're trying to make each other better. And so you're not trying to injure the other person. And so there's an aspect of, I think, getting better at control and understanding, I can go at a certain level and I'm not going to hurt somebody, right? And kind of understanding, getting a feeling for that. And also it's I guess, a communication between each partner as to, here's the level I'd like to spar at, right? Here's the intensity I'd like to spar at, and getting that kind of comfort. And so, I definitely, depending on the opponent, I still have times where, maybe I'm a little reticent, right? And you go a little light, but I definitely think that's something it gets better over time as you get a feeling for your own ability and what you can and can't do.
Right. I was sparring with a senior instructor kind of early on in my training, and we got to the end, I think it was a minute, and then another instructor was clapping and calling time, and you shifted partners. And that senior instructor just said, well, we just danced, because neither of us threw a blow. He was trying to teach me, and so he wasn't just overwhelming. Mm-hmm. The whole time I was too reticent to throw anything. I'll never forget that. Going, well, I'm going to try to throw some more blows. I like what you said about control. Do you think that they've learned a sense of their own power and how to control it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think my kids, kids can be very different. I think between my daughter, she was definitely the more aggressive one, and she likes to just come in with a flurry of punches, and definitely was more gung ho. Whereas my son's probably a little more like me, right? A little bit reserved, and that took a little bit more doing. And I think I've seen, with both of them, definite improvements in that. And whereas, I think, Jacob's definitely much more assertive and sparring and gets in there a lot more than he did initially. Caitlin, I've definitely seen her come in now with, a little bit more control and technique and less of the sort of Tasmanian devil sparring approach that I would say you start with. You've definitely seen growth of that. It's been really nice in the last, maybe 6 months that we've been able to kind of get back into this too a lot more. And so it's been interesting with all the technique work we've done. Even if we weren't doing a lot of sparring, they made a big step recently, I think.
You use the term muscle memory when they respond with a yes, sir, for example. Do you think that this experience in karate training has translated to home and the way that they act and control their volume and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the fun thing, actually, initially. It was the yes sirs, the yes ma'am, because it's not just it's just a simple phrase. It was, if you ask me to do something, the acknowledgement that comes with the yes sir, and then the doing is the thing I've noticed with the kids probably more. So it's not the oh, hey, I need you to go clean your room or do the dishes. It's not the yeah. It's the yes sir. It's the going and actually taking the action and taking care of it. And so like the respect aspect, I think is good. And I see their interactions with like other adults, for example. And I know, this has really helped.
You guys are testing for your black belts in the fall. Is that the plan?
That's right. Yeah. We're starting sort of our next prep cycle here in a few weeks and testing for certified in November. Yeah. So
talk to parents who don't, or any student who doesn't know, what is the prep cycle experience like? What has it been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a neat experience. So, let's see, I guess we've gone through now 2 testing weekends, and we've just gone through kind of from the winter into spring, our high brown belt prep cycle. And I think we were all, myself included, a bit nervous going into that prep cycle. We've heard, the amount of time that goes into it and the physical requirements and expectations that go along with it as well. And so, I think we all entered it maybe, a little nervous in what to expect. And I think as a parent, you're just a little worried for your kids. Like, how are they going to rise to the occasion? How are they going to handle the physical stuff? It's been so fun to watch and do it with them. The first few prep cycle classes are sort of a shock to the system, right? They're pretty intense. They're long. It's draining, right? It's really tiring and mentally challenging of all these things that you have to remember, and not just remembering your forms, but you've got to start to execute the right stances, the exact right punches. And so watching how quickly they kind of settled into this routine of Saturdays, weeknights, the extra lower belt classes. There was very little groaning or grumbling about it. It was actually, I think they pretty quickly learned that, okay, I can handle this and I'm willing to put in the time. And so it was kind of fun watching them develop. And actually, you really see this step function in technique with the kids. I always think, it's a little bit easier for adults, where you're doing forms or techniques to have proper form, right? You have sort of, a little bit better coordination, muscle, all these things that are required. And so I always kind of, as I practiced with my kids, I thought, oh boy, I don't know about that front stance, or, that's supposed to be a back stance, not a front stance, all these things that was the area where, boy, I just saw such a change in the kids and in terms of how their ability to do a deep front stance and know in the form that this is a transition from one stance to the other. And, how quickly they kind of latched onto that, doing the three of us just doing chunji, in the basement and being imperfectly in sync. Right. So it's been neat to see. So I've been really impressed how they've rose to the challenge and actually kind of, enjoyed it. Right. The second immersion weekend that we did compared to the first, they look great. They were, of course, we're all exhausted, but, they held up, and those late night sessions, they persevered through something that was really hard. Yeah, it's been a great experience. It's been super hard. It's funny that the kids, they both have this, I can tell when they're tired, and I've seen this in some of the late night sessions, that when they start hiccuping. They've done this since they're little kids, but I get to be like, 11:30 at night, and we're going through a form, and it's punch, aim, hiccup. And it's like, okay, guys, you're doing great.
Wow, that's great. That's something only a parent would know, remember, and laugh at. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
How are they at the organizational aspects? So you have for people who don't know this, you have a lot of weapons, different uniforms, so many things, journals to schedules to keep track of while you're testing at one of these 3-day black belt tests. And as a parent, that was something that always concerned me. That was very at the front of my mind. Do we both have everything that we need? But have they learned anything as far as that goes? Like how to keep track of things?
Actually, yeah, that was a challenge for a long time, right? Making sure you're prepared and have all of your equipment ready to go out the door at the right time. I mean, I think that's like a classic parenting problem, is just anytime you want to go somewhere, do we have everything? Do you have your coat? Do you have your shoes? Right. And this is, like 10 times that is your bag, everything in your bag that you need. You have your sparring gear, have your weapons, right? Your notebook. And so, my kids, I would say, are probably at different levels, in all honesty, of where they're at with that. I think my daughter is very organized, and ready to go. I think it continues to be an area where my son's probably working on it, but they've both improved. There's definitely been a lot less on me anymore of having to actually go and, you didn't have that. I got to go get this. Right. And so, I'd say more often than not, they're prepared now and ready to go and have everything there. And so it's funny. It's such a simple thing, but that's such a huge life skill and such a common, I think, parenting challenge, right?
Oh yeah. Something every parent wants is for their kids to be out the door before they are, kind of, with everything.
Right.
Well, to get back to karate movies, what's one of your favorite kung fu karate martial arts movies?
Oh boy. We used to find, I had a good neighborhood friend who lived a couple doors down from me, and we used to find all these, crazy different karate movies. And of course, you can always fall back on Karate Kid. That was a big one. But we used to, watch all these dubbed Bruce Lee movies. There was this really cheesy movie that I'd love to track down to see now as an adult, but it was called The Last Dragon. It was like this, I don't know, movie set in the city, and a guy that was training, and he would, he got to the point where he's so good that he would glow. And all I remember is like we would imitate, all the fighting scenes out of that movie. And I'm sure I'd watch it now and just cringe and think how cheesy it was. But those are some of the memories I had as a kid.
You ever try to imitate any of the choreography there?
Yeah, I try to wait till I'm on the mat there. But the fun thing, I watch about that show and see the level of damage these kids are doing to each other and think, wow, that, that would never hold up in real life.
Well, if there's anything to be said for a martial arts education, that's it. What you see in the movies doesn't always work out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Thank you for listening to the Ripple Effect Martial Arts Podcast. Find episodes and more at rippleeffectmartialarts.com.